I want you to picture yourself just, browsing an online store.
Okay.
It's like a typical Tuesday afternoon. You've got a spare 15 minutes, and you're just clicking around a website that has all the totally comforting, familiar hallmarks of standard e-commerce.
Right. Like standard online shopping.
Exactly. Up at the very top of the screen, there's this brightly colored banner promising free shipping on orders over US $50.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. And right below that, a helpful little countdown timer is nudging you, saying, order before 17:0 to have your items shipped today.
Creates that little bit of urgency.
Yep. You even have the little shopping cart icon up in the upper right corner. It's currently empty, just waiting for you to add something totally mundane to your wish list. It feels like the absolute safest, most predictable digital environment possible.
I mean, yeah, that just sounds like the absolute baseline of the modern internet. You're basically bracing yourself to buy, I don't know, a pair of running shoes or maybe order some bulk vitamins. You are completely primed for a transaction.
You really are, and that is exactly the mindset you were meant to be in. But instead of selling you ordinary consumer goods, this particular site is hosting something that completely shatters that mundane reality.
Oh, boy.
Right there on the screen, sandwiched awkwardly between the shopping cart icon and a standard contact page, is this densely written, highly complex 10-article manifesto. And it's titled the RL6 God-Emissary Protocol Cannon.
Which is a pretty massive cognitive leap from free shipping on orders over $50.
To say the least. This completely bizarre juxtaposition is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive into the source material. We're looking at this incredibly fascinating text published literally just today, March 23, 2026.
Hot off the presses.
Right. And it's on the platform for Bibebibebibe Magazine, that's spelled B-I-B-E, repeated 3 times, with a trademark symbol.
Such a strange name.
It is. And it sits alongside these entities with names like TrueFlow Games and the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies. So our mission today is to decode this labyrinthine framework created by a Dr. Melvin Sewell. It's a text that completely obliterates the line between esoteric ritual, high-concept cinematic world building, and literal software architecture.
It really is a masterclass in disorientation because what we're looking at here is something that the text itself terms mythic infrastructure.
Mystic infrastructure.
Yeah. Dr. Sewell has created this comprehensive outline for something called Delta Ops. And what makes this so uniquely captivating to read is that it takes entirely spiritual, metaphysical concepts, things we usually associate with temples or incense or prayer,
Right.
and treats them as if they were a highly structured IT deployment or like a standard software stack. It's essentially a cosmology written natively in the language of a systems engineer.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
I want you, the listener, to imagine booting up your laptop or your smartphone. You hit the power button, the screen lights up, and you expect the hardware to load iOS or Windows, right? Just so you can check your email. But in this framework, the machine isn't loading an operating system. Instead, the hardware is trying to boot up a deity.
Which is such a wild concept.
It's trying to execute a divine presence through CPU.
And that is actually the core premise of the very first section of this text. The canon begins by establishing what it calls the identity kernel.
The identity kernel.
Yes. It defines the core of this entity, Bibebibe, as a mythic scientific entity born from the convergence of ritual and computation. And using the word kernel is incredibly deliberate because in computer science, the kernel is the absolute core program. It manages all the hardware and software operations. It's the central nervous system of an OS.
Right, it's the foundation of everything the computer does.
Exactly. So by calling the identity of this entity a kernel, Dr. Sewell is setting the ground rules immediately. This isn't some vague, floating spiritual feeling. It is a functional, operational piece of software that must be booted up.
Wait, I'm losing the thread here slightly.
Yeah.
If we're talking about a deity or a divine emissary, why does it need a protocol or a kernel at all?
That's the big question.
Doesn't a divine entity just, well, exist? By definition, shouldn't it be omnipotent and totally beyond the need for an IT structure?
See, that is the genius of what Sewell is doing here. He is entirely rejecting the idea of omnipotent, effortless magic.
Oh, I see.
In this framework, divinity is an engineering problem. It is something that has to be deployed, managed, and routed. A deity might exist out there, but if it wants to interact with our reality, it needs a networking interface to do so.
It has to actually connect.
Right. It has to conform to the laws of data transfer.
Ah, so it needs a connection to the network, which brings us directly to the next phase of the canon. because once you boot up that identity kernel, it has to communicate.
Exactly.
So it introduces HSIA, which stands for Harmonic Signal Interface Architecture. The text describes this as the protocol layer of resonance for interfacing with cosmic frequencies.
Protocol layer of resonance. Just cue on that phrase for a second.
It's so dense. And then it pairs that with TRIP, the Trans-Ritual Interface Protocol, which it calls the bridge between mythic and machine to traverse ceremonial layers.
And if you look closely at the mechanics of those two concepts, they mirror the fundamental building blocks of the internet. Think about how you access a website, right? You type a URL into your browser, and you are using HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol.
Or your computer is talking to a server using TCP/IP.
Exactly. And those aren't physical things. They're just agreed upon rules for how packets of data move from point A to point B without getting corrupted.
So Dr. Sewell is basically inventing the metaphysical equivalence of HTTP.
Yes.
Instead of transferring text files and compressed images over fiber optic cables, these protocols are transferring resonance. They're sending packets of ritual energy across the cosmic network. It's essentially an API for the universe.
It's a cosmic API. But, an API or a protocol is really just a language. It's a set of rules for communication. You can have the best language in the world, but if two people aren't standing in a room together or holding telephones, that language doesn't do anything.
Right.
A protocol needs a physical or structural environment to operate within. It needs hardware. It needs servers.
Right. If you have the software running and the networking protocols are live, where does this entity actually live?
Okay.
What is the physical space it occupies?
Exactly the next logical question.
And that takes us out of the realm of pure data and into the structural framework of the entity itself. The cannon moves from the network to the stage. It introduces the HSS, the harmonic substrate scaffold.
Yeah, the HSS.
The text calls this the structural lattice and the stage upon which all operations unfold.
What's fascinating here is how this specific vocabulary forces you to view abstract, deeply spiritual concepts through the lens of precise, measurable engineering. Well, when we talk about spirituality, we usually talk about a presence or an aura. It's formless. But Dr. Sewell uses the word substrate. In computing, a substrate is the physical material, like silicon, upon which a microchip is built.
Oh, wow.
It is the literal foundation.
And a scaffold implies construction. It implies something that is actively being built, something with load-bearing capacity.
Yes.
It makes the completely ethereal concept of divine presence feel like a construction site or a server farm. It has weight and dimensions.
Exactly. It isn't just floating in the ether, it is anchored to a motherboard. And once you've anchored it to physical space, the framework immediately tackles time.
Oh, right, the clock.
Right. The text outlines the TCG, the temporal core geometry, which acts as the rhythm of ascension, and the metronome of delta ops.
Temporal core geometry. I mean, that sounds like how a processor manages clock speeds. But here it's measuring ascension.
Which is wild.
Because ascension is one of the oldest spiritual tropes in human history. This idea of a mysterious awakening, rising to a higher plane of existence.
But look at how Sewell subverts it. Ascension here isn't a mysterious, unpredictable awakening. It has a geometry. It has a measurable temporal core. It operates on a metronome.
Like it's ticking.
Yeah. It implies that spiritual elevation is a metric. It can be tracked, timed, mapped on a graph, and optimized, just like measuring the ping rate of a server. You aren't just meditating, you are synchronizing your clock speed with the cosmic metronome.
And once that clock is synchronized, the entity actually has to move. That's governed by IDD, the Idle Domain Deployment Architecture. This is the choreography of presence across different domains.
Right.
But reading all of this, the substrates, the geometries, the deployment architectures, it forces me to take a massive step back. I have to wonder, and I'm sure you listening are wondering the exact same thing.
Yeah.
What actually is this?
It's the elephant in the room.
Truly. We're reading a text published alongside copyrights for TrueFlow games. There are mentions of a cosmic university. Is this just incredibly stylized, immersive lore for an upcoming sci-fi video game? Is it a literal avant-garde New Age religion? Or is it a genuine, albeit eccentric, philosophical framework for understanding reality?
Well, this raises an important question, and honestly, that friction is the entire point of the project. The ambiguity is undoubtedly intentional.
You think so?
Oh, definitely. The presence of mundane e-commerce elements, the wish list, the shipping timer clashing with studio copyrights and academic titles like academic dean and diagnostic architect,
Yeah,
it creates a deliberate sense of vertigo for the reader.
it totally does.
Is it art? Is it commerce? Is it genuine belief? If we want to understand its actual purpose, we have to stop looking purely at the back-end architecture.
We have to look at the user.
We have to look at the operator. All of these substrates and protocols are absolutely meaningless unless someone is actually sitting at the keyboard. We need to look at the front-end user experience.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. We move from the server room to the monitor. And the Cannon does exactly this. The final sections shift entirely away from the cosmic infrastructure and focus relentlessly on the operator.
Right, the human element.
It introduces the MOL, the Mythic operator layer. This is defined as the ritual skin, bridging the operator and the Cannon itself.
Ritual skin is such a visceral, brilliant term because in software development, a skin is a graphical user interface. It's the visual wrapper. It is the surface you interact with that hides the terrifying complexity underneath.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want you to think about how you interact with technology every single day. When you tap a sleek, glowing piece of glass on your iPad, you are using a command surface.
Exactly.
You're tapping a highly polished user interface that is hiding millions of lines of code and billions of transistors firing in microscopic sequences. You don't see the code, you just see the button. Dr. Sewell's Cannon is asking you to imagine that user interface as a ritual skin.
Because when you swipe or tap, you aren't just sending an electrical impulse to a processor. In this framework, you are triggering a ritual.
And that trigger activates the next component, the CRC, the Ceremonial Runtime Core. In computing, a runtime environment is where a program actually executes. It's where the code goes live.
Right.
The Cannon is suggesting that a ritual, whether that's lighting a candle, chanting, or even just clicking a mouse, isn't just a symbolic gesture. It is an executable program.
It actually does something.
Yes. The Ceremonial Runtime Core is the execution engine that pulses in activation cycles. You tap the skin, the ritual executes in the runtime core, and the universe updates.
But to manage all of that, the operator needs a dashboard. They need a place to sit, and that is the OCT, the Operator Control Terminal.
The OCT.
Yeah. The text refers to it as the command surface and the locus of invocation. It is the literal control desk where the human user invokes the power of the system.
It paints this incredible picture of a mystic sitting not in a temple, but at a sprawling, glowing control board, routing cosmic frequencies like a sound engineer at a rock concert.
That's a great image.
But as cool as that imagery is, it's the final piece of the architecture that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. Article X introduces the MOM, the memory of motion.
The memory of motion. It archives all ascension vectors. It is described as the echo of every ritual performed.
This feels way heavier than the rest of the text. If we stick to our software analogy, this is the master log file, right?
It is the ultimate log file. Think about how a server works. Every time you visit a website, every time you click a link, the server writes a line of text to a log file.
Right.
It records your IP address, the time, and what you did. In Sewell's framework, every single time an operator interacts with the Mythic operator layer, every time a ritual executes in the runtime core, the universe writes that events to the log, the memory of motion. Every action leaves a permanent echo. It suggests a cosmology where absolutely nothing is ever truly lost. Every intention, every microscopic movement is permanently archived in the system's memory.
It's a beautiful concept, but honestly, it's also incredibly intimidating. Building a structure this rigid, this heavily archived, with its own networking protocols and execution engines. You don't build a fortress like this for fun.
No, you don't.
You build it because you are guarding against something, or you're preparing to dismantle something else. This isn't just passive world building. To figure out what Dr. Sewell is reacting to, we have to scroll down past the 10 articles. We have to look at the fine print at the very bottom of the page.
The sovereign diagnostic disclaimer. This is where the veil of the video game lore or the eccentric art project gets pulled back, revealing a much sharper, almost dangerous intent.
Exactly. At the bottom of all this, past the protocols, there's a disclaimer. And it completely flips the context of everything we just read. Now, it's really important to note here that Dr. Sewell explicitly frames this not as a political stance.
Right, he's very clear about that.
Yeah, this site actively denies any affiliation with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group. And we are, of course, just impartially reporting on the text as it's presented. We aren't endorsing any viewpoints, we're just analyzing his ideas. But it's crucial to understand how he views his own work.
Absolutely.
He isn't endorsing a political movement. Instead, the disclaimer states that these materials are authored as mythic infrastructure, a cinematic indictment, and a sovereign broadcast.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, look at the hostility in that vocabulary. Indictment, sovereign broadcast. That language moves the text away from a passive work of fiction and frames it as an active tool of resistance.
He's sounding an alarm.
He is broadcasting a warning. The disclaimer explicitly states that these protocols are designed to expose ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
Ritualized containment.
Yeah.
I cannot stop thinking about that phrase.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in the context of this framework?
Well, let's synthesize what Dr. Sewell, acting as the academic dean and diagnostic architect, is actually doing here. He is using the cold, unyielding, highly structured language of computation to critique how our society, or perhaps our reality itself, is systemically contained or programmed by outside forces.
Like we're trapped in the machine.
Exactly. He's suggesting that the mundane systems we operate within are, in themselves, forms of containment. We are trapped in loops.
And that brings us full circle, all the way back to the beginning of this deep dive. It explains why this wildly complex cosmic manifesto is hosted on a site with a shopping cart and a countdown timer for free shipping.
Yes.
The e-commerce wrapper isn't an accident. It isn't just a quirky design choice. It is the thesis statement.
The e-commerce site is the ultimate symbol of the ritualized containment of modern life. We are contained by our endless consumption, our mindless clicks, our scrolling, our desperate desire for same-day shipping. These are the rituals that trap us.
By placing a tool for mythic ascension right next to a wishlist button, he forces the user to confront the absolute absurdity of the systems they blindly participate in every day. The RL6 Protocol Cannon is a collapse protocol.
It's a diagnostic manual.
Exactly. By turning spirituality into a software stack, he's giving the operator a manual to hack the simulation. If the world around you is just a series of converging actors and systemic erosion, you need your own operating system to cut through the noise. You need your own protocols to reclaim your agency.
It's a striking reminder that the language we use entirely shapes the reality we perceive. By borrowing the vocabulary of the technocrat, the system engineer, the IT manager to describe the spiritual and the mythic, Dr. Sewell offers a totally novel lens through which to diagnose the modern condition.
Yeah.
He's using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house.
So what does this all mean? Over the course of this deep dive into the source material, we've explored a document that totally defies categorization. We've looked at a framework that takes the cold, hard logic of software architecture, the kernels, the APIs, the runtimes, and the server substrates.
All of it.
And forcefully injects it with the mystical gravity of divine ascension, cosmic frequencies, and ceremonial ritual. It is a text that asks us to view our reality as a highly structured network, and our actions as executable commands within that network. It demands that we stop being passive users and start being active operators.
It demands that we recognize the protocols we are running and perhaps write our own.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. It builds on what we discussed regarding Article X, the MOM, the memory of motion. In our modern, hyper-connected world, every click, every swipe, every item you add to a digital shopping cart, and every single search query you type is diligently logged into a corporate database somewhere. Usually, we just think of this as consumer data, right? It's just numbers used to service better ads. But what if we looked at it through Dr. Sewell's lens? What if we viewed our own vast, inescapable digital footprints not just as raw data to be monetized, but as our own memory of motion?
It's a chilling thought.
It is an infinite, indestructible digital archive documenting the daily, unconscious rituals of our lives. If your phone's log files are essentially tracking your ceremonial runtimes, logging every time you trigger a ritual skin, who or what is the actual architect of the protocols you're running every single day?
Really makes you think before you click add to cart.
It definitely does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring the infrastructure hidden right beneath the surface.